Thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to do a comparative analysis. This is a pronatalist system versus the modern garbage that we have here in the West. Okay, so for example, in 1930s Germany, right? So in 1930s, there was, this was a very notable system, right? It was a pronatalist model, and we're going to do a little diagram here to do a comparison on the two. All right, so the dimension here is a pronatalist a model, for example, in the 1930s in Germany, but they could, or be more, and then the modern Western model that we have now, with the birth rate plummeting, dropping very fast and hard onto what? Onto zero, right? So the economic cost, right? So the number one thing that I ask my Chinese students, I would say, what's the point? Why are you only having one child? Why are you only having two children? So they would say it's a financial liability. It's very expensive. The education, especially this one here. So the education is what they're pointing to. Housing is incredibly expensive in Canada, but in the United States a little bit less expensive. But in China it's actually pretty reasonable. But the education is extremely high. The cost of education is extremely high in China. So my Chinese students will complain about that, and that will be the number one answer they give to why they're not having more than two. You know, to this day, I've worked in this company for like 5 years, or just about 5 years, and there's only one woman in the 5 year. I had thousands and thousands of students that said that she had three children, not four, three. Okay, so the thing is that for example, in the 1930s in Germany, um, they will reward the families that have three or four, or and a mother that had eight children, right? This is a gold, like a golden type of honor system. There's an old honor system: the gold, silver, and bronze. Four children was a silver. Six children was a silver, and then eight children or more was a golden. And she would have all kinds of perks and benefits and all that stuff. So, all right, let's continue. The economic cost for a pro-natalist model: children reduced a financial burden through loan forgiveness, tax relief, food priority, and housing preference. Sorry, so they would actually get, you know, forgiveness of the loan if they 100% for forgiveness if they'd have four children. So a woman that would have 25% per each child, the full loan, right? They would get married, they would have a loan, and then 100% of that loan was completely forgiven after they had four children, after the woman had four children. So it's less expensive to have children, right? So the incentives, the explicit incentives to have children, for example, the social status, right? A woman should be honored, and I always believe that, a woman should be honored if she's bearing children, right? This is the duty of the woman, and we should honor them, and really. Um, for example, my grandmother, she had four children, right? She's an honorable woman, right? So I can, honor my grandmother all day long, every day of the week. She's, I didn't deserve that much of an angel for a grandmother, but it seems that I do. All right, my grandmother's truly honorable, and absolutely incredible, a gift bestowed upon our civilization, four children or more, right? My wife's mother has eight children. Right? My wife's mother has eight children. Eight children. Can you believe that? Really? So my wife has there were four girls and four boys in my wife's family. Right? She married early. Right? The husband was 21 or 22, and the wife was 13 years old. Right? 13 years old. It was an arranged marriage. Right? And she had eight children. She bestowed eight children upon the country. Right? Very honorable. Right? All right, so the modern Western model here of the state incentives, the incentive largely neutral or weak. Benefit rarely offsets real costs. So benefits rarely offset real costs. It's extremely expensive to have a baby. It's like a luxury or whatever, right? So then you got to always fall back on abortion and birth control and all that stuff, right? Cultural messaging, motherhood and family framed as national service and honor, and that's absolutely true. Even in this wacky Western model here, parenthood framed as optional, burdensome, or career limiting. right? So this is a great table here. The female economic structure. A single income household is structurally viable. So, for me, I was able to transport my location, transfer a location, and I have an income. I'm working. My wife is working 24/7 as a housewife. She's got four children. She gave me four children just like that. Boom. Incredibly strong. But in the West, a dual income is often mandatory for survival, discouraging children. Now, I can't have children. I gotta work, right? So, how nutty is that, right? Um, Now, the marriage and family stability here of a pro-natalist model, right? The marriage encountered early, divorce is discouraged, and marriage is delayed here in the Western model. Western is model, the marriage is delayed or avoided altogether, and then high divorce rates reduce fertility. Right, so we always have, there's so much, no fault divorce. How nutty is that, right? Let's continue here. A pronatalist opportunity cost for women. Motherhood socially rewarded, not motherhood is socially rewarded, not penalized, and motherhood is penalized by career interruption and income loss. Right? They would actually give a penalty to a woman for being pregnant. Right? It's absolutely nutty, but this is what we see here, and especially in Japan, Korea, and China, and these kinds of countries, and in the West where I'm from. Now I'm from Canada. We have this kind of thing here. The housing, the family-sized housing prioritized, and then in the West, the housing costs forced childless living arrangements, right? The roommate thing, right? Right. The abortion availability restricted pregnancy usually led to birth. Right. When you're pregnant in a pronatalist society, the pregnancy needs the birth, but you're married already, so you're not going to be sleeping around with Chad and Tyrone. Abortion is normalized, right, in the West as a primary fertility regulator. Right. It's absurd, it's savage, and it's just gross. So birth control role limited first fertility is seen as socially valuable, but the birth control role in a Western civilization is widespread, long-term hormonal suppression of fertility, right? Like I said, what is the actual illness that this young lady has? Is it her natural ability to produce children? Is that really the illness that you need correction? Um, it's quite perverse. It's quite perverse. So the demographic outcome, rising or stabilized birth rates, and then the demographic outcome in the West is sustained fertility collapse. 1.2, that's very, very generous. It's less than 1.1, I think, or even 0.9, but it's it's well below the replacement rate. So then the population replacement, internal population replacement, people are just having families, right? But yeah, as we see here in Canada, there's a whole bunch of immigrants, right? Immigration from mostly India, Africa, China, any kind of place, right? They will go to Canada and they will replace the population that should have been replaced internally, right? But there's no culture anymore, so who cares, right? Who cares? Intergenerational continuity, strong family lineage and inheritance focus, but weak generational continuity, delayed or foregone parenthood. Right, so why pronatalist policies were favorable to national growth? Were favorable to national growth. From a demographic and economic standpoint, these systems worked because they aligned individual incentives with national survival. Right, that's the point. Right, this is, something's going to go down. The ship is going to go down. Children were treated as a public good, not a private luxury. The state shared cost of reproduction instead of externalizing it onto families. Women were not forced to choose between economic survival and fertility, right? There's actually a choice. If you think about it, right, you have to survive, and if you actually, have a baby, you will have less money, and you will die. Basically, it's survival, economic survival, or fertility. Basically, you're forced to limit the number of children that you have because in these kinds of countries, you can't, you literally can't. Fertility decisions occurred in a stable, marriage-centered social structure. Population replacement was internal, preserving continuity of culture. And where's this culture anyway? It's completely gone, right? We don't have any kind of culture anymore. This culture, this is the this is the way you spell this word. The where's the culture anyway? You know, the culture seems to be completely non-existent at this point, right? What is the definition of this word culture? I'm not going to go there, but it is very, very interesting. This whole rabbit trail here. What is the culture and where did it go? The labor force, sure. People are getting older, and then the tax base, right? And the result was predictable demographic stability, which is foundational to long-term economic growth, pension systems sustainability, military and civil workforce continuity, cultural and social cohesion, right? Why the modern system correlates with civilizational decline? Civilization. I mean, I cannot put it to you any plainer, right? It's the decline of the civilization. It's not just a decline. It's a complete catastrophe. What we're seeing is taxpayer funded abortions, which is a generally new thing in the world here. Birth control pills that don't actually prevent pregnancy, it just causes early abortion. I mean, this is a serious thing we're looking at. We're facing a serious problem here. Now, from a strictly structural analysis, modern Western systems create anti-fertility conditions. Children are framed as a personal cost with minimal collective support. Abortion and birth control function as primary demographic regulators. Fertility is delayed until biological decline reduces success. That's a great one here. Read this one more time. Fertility is delayed, right? The age of the woman that will actually get older, and they're not going to start having children until the ages of 33 to 35, until the biological decline reduces success, and then after 37, 30, 42. That ship has sailed, and then there's no more chances for success. The best ages for a woman to have. I mean, you do the research. When is the best age for a woman to actually have a baby, right? All right, economic survival often requires postponing or rejecting parenthood. Incredible. Rejecting parenthood? Is that a normal thing? Is that natural? Economic survival here. Who's putting these types of pressures onto these people, onto these people, right? I personally, dodged that bullet. I went to a different country. There's no chance for that any kind of success in Canada. Canada's a lost cause, right? And as soon as I can get my kids, hopefully I'll be able to get my kids out as soon as I can. They're still stuck in that place. They're imprisoned inside of that country. What a garbage country. States attempt to solve population collapse. Sorry, states attempt to solve population collapse after the fact via immigration rather than fertility, right? So that's what we see here. We say, I'll bring a whole bunch of these immigrants in. Now the real result is below fertility replacement for multiple generations. Rapid population aging, shrinking tax base, supporting expanding social programs, increasing dependency ratios, and cultural discontinuity. This is not speculative. Every Western country with liberal abortion access and high contraceptive reliance has remained below replacement for decades, despite welfare spending. The core structural insight is that the key difference is who bears the cost of reproduction. The pronatalist system, the cost shared by state, fertility rises. The modern systems, cost privatized and fertility collapses. So no civilization in recorded history has sustained itself long term at sub-replacement fertility without either collapse or radical restructuring. All right. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, the early Germany. I'm not talking about anything like that. The only thing I'm talking about is this pronatalist model where the women would actually be rewarded for having children, right? And the families were honored and all that stuff. So very interesting topic here that we're talking about. And we unfortunately don't live in a pronatalist type of society. We live in a culture of death, right? It's quite sad. It's actually very, very sad. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video.